be prepared to provide hard security support to the government, including training, provision of arms. There is no other way. There is also other strategies that need to be adopted, working with religious leaders and so on and so forth, to deal with the promise that radical Islam presents in the region. But that's a different. Those are ancillary strategies to the essential need to focus on the provision of security to the government if Europe wants to play a meaningful role. It's not a pleasant message, I'm fully aware of that.
It's just my own thought. My analysis is that there is something coming to West Africa that I have called the Black Winter. The Black Winter is coming.
Then we can have a conversation around, as the President alluded to, around the three Sahelian states rejoining ECOWAS. But when you look at the need even to establish a trilateral arrangement through the Alliance of Sahel States, that was built in a recognition that perhaps individually we're not strong enough to deal with and to counter some of these issues, right? But recognizing that the region for them still matters. And I say Niger, Burkina, and Mali have an amazing endowment of uranium, of lithium, of manganese, and of gold. When people talk about critical minerals, these four are among those that are mentioned. These are not poor countries, but they are countries where people are poor because even the governance of those resources right now still is not with those three countries.
Hello Africa, my dear brothers and sisters. A few days ago, I shared a video about these courageous and brave African women who stood firm in Munich to defend the Alliance of Sahel States. As you heard, my dear brothers and sisters, she clearly stated that these countries are rich in resources, yet they continue to be exploited and destabilized. These countries are rich in terms of uranium. They have huge deposits of uranium, they have huge deposits of gold, critical minerals, oil, natural gas, and other metals. These countries are so rich, but their people are so poor. When you reflect on that statement and connect it with the recent events in Niger, Niger airport was attacked by terrorists. Burkina Faso also was attacked. You remember what happened to Mali? Mali also was attacked. Connect with the issue of Nigerian airplane violated the airspace of the Alliance of Sahel States. Then come with the issue of US deploying troops in Nigeria. These countries were attacked by terrorist groups. Then Nigerian airplane violated the airspace of these countries. Then US deploying troops in Nigeria. And this brings me to see that this is a pattern. It suggests that the United States may be positioning itself for possible military action against these countries. Why? Because America wants oil, America wants uranium, America wants gold, America wants lithium and other critical minerals from these countries. The only way for America to access these resources is to use force, the way we have seen America use the force in Venezuela. That America wanted Venezuelan oil, so what America did is to capture President Maduro. So right now, America is positioning itself for possible military action against the Alliance of Sahel States. I'm saying this also reflecting with the statements of Captain Ibrahim Traore. Last year, when Captain Ibrahim Traore addressed the Alliance of Sahel States summit in Mali, he said that West Africa must be prepared for the Black Winter. He didn't clearly explain what he meant, but he said Black Winter is coming. And today, we have witnessed 3 military planes of US already landed in Nigeria. They have said only 100 troops were deployed, but we know it's about more than those. We know in the military, people are not speaking the truth. So US has deployed troops in Nigeria. So we may ask ourselves, why US is much concerned with our resources? You know very well that US has several military bases here in the continent of Africa. And those bases need resources. For instance, those bases need oil, logistics, money to land, and other things. So where will US get money? Where will US get oil? So US is making sure that the military bases in the African continent will use African oil. There's no need for the US to transport oil from Washington or from New York to Gaborone in Botswana to supply to its military base in Botswana. There's no need for the US to supply oil from Washington to the military base that is in the Horn of Africa, in Kenya. So US want to use African resources to support its military base. That's what US is doing. And that's why they are much concerned, or US is much concerned with African resources. That's why US is signing several deals with African countries to access these resources. So, as Traore warned us, Black Winter is coming. We need to be prepared as Africans. Black Winter is coming. We need to be prepared. So, it will not be wonder when you hear that US has attacked Niger, Burkina, or Mali. Of course, they will say there's a terrorist groups. You know, if you go back to the history, US and Western power NATO removed Gaddafi from power by saying that Gaddafi is sponsoring terrorists. Today, Gaddafi is not there, but terrorists are still there. They told us that Gaddafi is sponsoring or was sponsoring terrorist groups in Middle East, in some parts of Africa. Okay, they finished Gaddafi, they removed Gaddafi from power, killed him. So what next? Are these terrorist groups ended? No, they're still growing. They're still coming. Who is training them? Who is supporting them? Recently, I heard a member of parliament in Nigeria lamenting that right now terrorist groups are using drones. Just who's supplying drones to those terrorist groups? Who's supplying drones to those terrorist groups? We Africans, do we have companies that are manufacturing drones that can be supplied to these terrorist groups? So if you connect dots, you get something and you understand something. So I'm saying this because we know very well that before the coming of President Abdulrahman Chiani of Niger, US had military base in Niger. US had one of the biggest drone base in Niger. But when Chiani came to power, it closed that drone base. France had military bases in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. But these leaders said enough is enough. Western companies has been operating in these countries, exploiting these countries But when these leaders came to power, they said enough is enough. So the only way for France, for US to go back to these countries is to use force. And to use force, they have to be prepared. Now US is busy with Iran, is preparing to invade Iran. And of course we know what is going on. US is forcing Iran to sign the deal. Then after those countries, after Iran, these countries will be the next. If not Mali, it will be Burkina Faso. If not Burkina Faso, it will be Niger. Why? Because US want resources. If you have heard an interview made by the US General, Mr. Langley, when he was asked about the issue of Burkina Faso, he said that Burkina Faso is an epicenter of terrorism. He said Russia is there. So they are trying to do everything to counter Russia and to counter China in these countries. So US and Russia will not confront each other. What US is doing is to attack those countries that are best friends of Russia, that are best friends of China. The way they have done to Maduro, and now you have seen Nigeria was attacked. So Nigeria was attacked, Tinubu was shaken, and of course, one thing that US has advantage, some of our leaders has appeared in this Epstein files. So there's a lot of secrets that African leaders fear to be exposed. So for instance, President Tinubu, he will not do anything because he knows that if he try to refuse anything, his sin will be exposed. His things will be exposed. That's why you have seen Nigeria has surrendered for US to deploy troops. You know, sometimes I wonder. I said, Nigeria, it is calling itself the giant of Africa. But how is it possible the giant of Africa was active to deploy troops in Benin? Then the same giant of Africa cannot deploy troops in its northern part. So it's America who is deploying troops. So Nigeria deployed troops in Benin to tackle and to stop coup. But the same Nigeria failing to deploy troops in northern Nigeria to fight terrorists. But US are that power. What comes to your mind when you connect these dots? You understand that it's not about terrorists. It's about US preparing to attack Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. So they're using Nigeria to change narrative or to create narratives that US were there in Nigeria. And sometimes we don't know who are being prepared in Nigeria. We can say maybe they are fighting there, but they're training people to go to Mali, to go to Niger, to go to Burkina Faso. And this message must go to all people of goodwill. Please tell Traore, tell Assimi Goita, tell Abdulrahman Chan, be careful. Be careful. History has taught us that Africans, we are always betraying each other. And what is happening right now, Nigeria is betraying our struggle. It doesn't make sense that Nigeria, a country that calling itself a giant of Africa, cannot deploy troops in its northern part. Then it's the US who can do so. And yet you come here and you tell us that America is fighting terrorist groups in Nigeria. At the same time, those terrorist groups are attacking Mali, attacking Niger, attacking Burkina Faso. So later on, you will find that US will say terrorist groups has learned to Mali, has learned to Nigeria, to Niger, and to Burkina Faso. So US is going to deploy troops in Sahel to fight terrorists. Then from there, US will take control of those countries. And that's what US is doing. US is using soft power right now. At the end of the day, US will use strong power and will force these leaders to go out. So they know very well that, ages, leaders will change time to time. So they're not very hard. Now US has succeeded to take control of Venezuelan oil. US has signed agreement with Democratic Republic of Congo. So now US has control of resources in Congo, resources in Venezuela, and now US is looking for the oil in Iran. But also an important issue is the issue of the oil in Niger. You may ask yourself why US is much concerned with resources in Niger, in Burkina, in Mali. US has several military bases in Africa, and all these things need resources. They need oil, need energy. So the only way for US to run these military bases, it needs resources. And where US get resources, it's from Africa. So US does not need to buy oil from maybe Russia or to take oil from Washington to Central Africa, to Botswana. US will use African oil and African resources for its military base. That's why US is much concerned with our resources. So family, brothers and sisters, I'm trying to connect dots to what I see right now. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not okay. If you have maybe good information, you may share with us, but I'm sharing this for we Africans to understand the reality and trying to connect dots what is going on, because we have seen what happened in Venezuela must awakening all of us. So family, brothers and sisters, let us not speak for too long. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa. Oh, yeah. You make Africa great. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Africa.